Welcome to the very first episode of Unapologetically Wild with me, Katie Sontag. I am so excited to be in your ears today for whatever you are doing, and I'm so grateful that you chose to listen and learn a little bit about me. Today I'm going to tell you about my story, how I got to be a women's empowerment coach, and all the lessons I learn along the way that I get to experience so that I get to teach and I get to help women move through. I was born in Maitland, and when I was young, I lived upstairs with my parents in a restaurant, and it was really crazy because I used to come downstairs and let the kids in the kids' room, show them to where they were going to play. And then one day a little kid hit me and I was like, oh my gosh, I can't do this anymore. So I would show them to the kids' room, and then I decided that I was going to be the pepper girl. And I'd walk around the restaurant and I would be giving pepper to all the adults. Now, this pepper shake, you can imagine, it's double the size of me, right? So I'm barely carrying it. I'm dragging it along the ground. So people have to grab the pepper shake off me, twist it themselves, and then give it back. I then used to have so much gumption that I would walk into the chef, tell her what I wanted for dinner, and then I would walk out and continue to keep giving people pepper as my job. And then I would go get my dinner once it was ready. I would walk up to an unassuming couple. I would put my dinner on the table and decide to have dinner with them. And my mum used to say she used to have to apologize all the time because I would just put myself there, and the poor couple was probably on a date, right? I'm like, oh my gosh, this is what will happen to you if you have sex tonight. Or it's like, this is what a family is like. Welcome, get a trial, free trial. And so what I would do is I would just sit and eat my dinner. My mum would have to apologize and all the things. But when she would walk down the street and everyone would wave at me, everyone would be like, Katie, hello. And she'd be like, I don't even know who these people are, right? I met so many people while my parents were in this restaurant. It was such a beautiful way that I didn't even know as a child that I would be connecting with people and I would meeting people and I would just wave as we walked down the street. And this is all before I was 4. So when I was 4, we moved to Elivana. And when we moved there, it was such a beautiful place to be. And this is where I sort of got into a state where I didn't make any friends. When I got to primary school, I wanted to be friends with this girl, and every other girl would take her away from me, almost like I was a leper. I really struggled to learn at school, and I didn't really understand why I wasn't a kid that people wanted to play with. And so this was a really big learning curve and a really big thing for me because it was like I just felt like I was alone. I struggled to learn to read and write, so I had to go to a special class. And this is where I started to think that I wasn't good enough, and this not worthy enough to have friends, not good enough to do the things I wanted to do. And it was a real point where I wanted to be a perfectionist because I had a little brother and I just wanted to be the perfect child, and I wasn't. And so for so long, I beat myself up about that until I kind of got into sports. I remember nagging my mum one day, we're with our cousins away, and she was like, wait for me before you go in. Annoyed anyway. So I said to my mum, because my cousins were already in the pool, right? They didn't have to wait for their parents, they could swim. And I was like, I want to learn how to swim. And so my mum put me in swimming lessons because she was like, oh my gosh, this girl wants to just get in and swim and doesn't want to obviously have me around to help her with that. So I got to do swimming lessons. I was hopeless, horrendous. They were like, there's videos of me bobbing in the water and doing like trying to do butterfly, and it looks like my limbs are like over here and then my body is over there and everything's just fully detached and nothing is working together in unison. It's hilarious. I've watched the video so many times. What the actual fuck? Anyway, somehow I managed to get my limbs and my body to all work together at some point, which is thankful because later on I became a national swimmer. So thank goodness I got it all sorted. But it took me a lot of trial and error. But I think what the biggest thing was with this is I started to make friends. I started to realize that through sport, I could meet people, and I got to also shine in my own way, which had its pros and cons, right? We get to shine, we get to be everything. And I didn't use my voice because as a kid, I used my voice. I struggled to be able to say what I wanted. And this was something that led to many different things as I grew older. And it was just one of these moments where I realized that I had to step out of my comfort zone continuously, not that I ever wanted to make sure that I kept moving forward, right? So being in sport got comfortable, but then every day I had to be out of my comfort zone to get better at sport, right? So that I could be friends and all the things. And this also meant it linked to my worthiness of love, because if I was doing well, I would be shown love and everyone would be like, you're great, that's amazing, oh my gosh, okay. And if I wasn't, that's when I'd hear about it from, my family, friends, all the things. And that's when I would beat myself up 10 times more than any other person around me. And it was a really bad thought process. My brain used to beat me up constantly. And I didn't really realize how much till I started to try and do things out on my own. So once I sort of got out of school and I wanted to become, well, even actually in school, when I wanted to become school captain, I had a lot of support and people around me that actually pushed me to do that. But there's one thing that I really did do myself, and this was definitely from my swimming and from my sports background, was I remember my mum said I wanted to go to Toastmasters because I was terrible at public speaking. So when I was a kid, I used to ask my teacher if I could just do it in front of her, because I would literally have a full attack and I would freak out to the point where I wouldn't be able to speak. And so when I was younger, I used to have to do it to my teacher. Eventually, through school, I would do class projects in front of the class, but I would sweat, I would shake, I would be so nervous, it would be so embarrassing, I wouldn't look at anyone. And so then when I got to high school and my teachers and friends were like, you should run for school captain. And I was like, absolutely not. There's speaking involved. I'm not going to do that. And then they kept telling me like it'll be really good. It's good for your development. It's good for you in general because, over school and, why not? And I was like, oh my gosh, I love you all. And I'm so grateful for the support. And then I was like, well, I have to go learn how to speak, right? So I was like, Mom, I'm going to Toastmasters. I'm like, how can I learn how to speak? I'm going to go to Toastmasters. Anyway, the first day we rolled in and my mum's like, you don't have to go. Like, you really don't. I'm shaking. I'm sweating. I am a mess, an absolute mess next to my mum. And like, she is looking at me and she's like, you don't have to go in there. It's so fine. We can leave. No big deal. And I was like, nope, I'm going. I went in there. Course was incredible. There were so many other people that were just as anxious as I was, which was good and bad. And I met new people. I learnt how to stand up in front of people. Don't get me wrong, I wasn't an expert by the time I left Toastmasters, but I was a lot better. And they would get us to do impromptu things, which I didn't realize would later set me up for joining the military. So they would stand me up and they would be like, all right, talk about dolphins for a minute. And I'm like, oh my God, dolphins? What? Oh my God. It's like, I don't know anything about dolphins. They're pretty. They do random things. I don't know, they eat fish. Anyway, so it was really good because then as I left school and joined the military, that was also another really big learning curve because I was like, holy crap, what do I do here? Like, I don't know how to, like, they'd get us up to impromptu stuff and like, yes, I'd done it once. It doesn't mean I was prepared to do it in all the military sense, because to me, if I hadn't perfected the content, I couldn't talk about it, right? So it was a real big mind thing of like, how do I tell myself that it'll be okay? And thank goodness I had actually shown my brain that I didn't die from the experience of like impromptu speeches. However, I always used to get in the military of like, you're not confident enough. And I was like, oh man, every time I get this same thing, I'm still nervous, I'm still anxious, this still is a really big deal for me. And then, of course, what do you think I went and did? I decided to go and become a physical training instructor in the army. How I thought that would be a really good idea, nobody knows, right? Nobody knows. It's literally standing in front of people, giving instruction for like an hour at a minimum, and telling people where to go, what to do, instructing them on, different fitness techniques, all these things, right? The one piece I don't like doing, and I throw myself in the deep end, right? And I remember when I first did a course, a combat fitness leader course. So we have to do this to be able to run PT just for our unit in general. And so I went and did this course, and I sat there, and every time I fucked up, I would be so hard on myself. I would get upset, I would get angry at myself, and I'd go and just like be so mad, and not realizing as well that a lot of this stemmed from years of suppressing anger, right? And so I'd get so angry and so mad. And I remember one of my mentors, he pulled me in and he was like, if you keep beating yourself up like this, you won't get anywhere. He was like, the more you beat yourself up, the more it'll stop you from moving forward, right? This was when I started to become conscious of the perfectionist piece, because I had never really noticed how perfect I wanted my life to be, or had made my life, right? Everything had to be perfect or I failed. And so I got to start to see that and see how much I was actually beating myself up, how much I was causing myself self-harm from my own brain telling me how shit I was at everything and that I wasn't worthy unless I was crushing it, right? Like unless I was absolutely perfect, I wasn't good. And we're human, nobody's perfect. So you can imagine how much I bashed myself up continuously, right? So that was when I first found out about the perfectionist. Now, the good girl, whole nother ball game. As I was growing up, obviously I didn't have a voice, and I chose to not speak up about things, right? Because I didn't really know how. I had a lot of stored anger and I wasn't really sure what to do with that. So this then turned into a really interesting dynamic when it came to men, because when I was young, I used to play like when we were swimming and stuff, and we'd like hit each other with towels and do all the things. And I used to get really rough because men used to, like boys used to hit me. So I'd be like, oh, I can hit him back just as hard, right? And I used to think that was just totally normal. But it really wasn't. But it was a way for me to get my anger out, which isn't healthy. I didn't know that at the time. As a kid, I would just bash them up just as hard as they would bash me. And that didn't really go well. Because as I grew older, I didn't really understand that they don't really like that. And I was like, but I just need to get my anger out and they can take it, right? They hit me, so why not? And so that was a really big piece, because then I became submissive, which is what I'd seen in my childhood, to just submit and sort of men can do whatever they want, really, and I don't say anything. And so that led to me feeling like that was the other option, right? Obviously understanding that we no longer play fight, that's not a thing. So now, what's next when it comes to my relationship with men? And that then led to sexual abuse. That then led to emotional abuse. And it was through these times where I didn't realize that I was actually living the victim. And I was portraying that men would come in, they could do whatever they wanted, and I just had to be submissive. I just had to let them do whatever they wanted to do, right? And so I didn't realize I was running this story unconsciously in my brain. And I've had men pick me up and throw me on concrete, like, physical abuse as well. And so it took me a really long time to realize that I was attracting men due to my story. So my internal story about men attracted them to me, which then meant that I was getting in relationships with men who would do that, right? And I'm not saying every relationship was like that, but that's sort of what was going on, or I kind of expected it. It was sort of normal. And this is a really big piece because it was big on my worthiness. So if I wasn't the good girl, so that was me being the good girl, if I wasn't the perfectionist, then I linked all of these things to love. So then I wasn't lovable. And this built up this huge story that I wasn't lovable. I wasn't worthy of love. I shouldn't receive love. And if I do, it's in the way of how it's meant to be or how I'm shown. So this was a really big piece because on the inside, I had this like lioness that was just like wanting to come out. She's like, I'm fucking fierce, bitch, and I want to do more and I want to be more. And I didn't really know what to do with her because there was so much trauma that I hadn't released around men, around my perfectionist, around my good girl, around me fitting into a box that meant that I couldn't get out. It's almost like I trapped myself because then I started to use food and exercise as ways to beat myself up, right? So, for example, one day at work, I would make a sandwich, and to punish myself or make sure I ate less, right? I would have half a sandwich at lunch and half a sandwich for dinner. And I would be starving. I'd be sitting there and I'm so fucking hungry. And I've counted out like maybe 4 almonds, but like I have half a sandwich. Like that was just the snack earlier in the day. And I've had my half a sandwich and I'm watching everybody eat and I'm so hungry. But I'm like, no, you don't deserve it. You don't deserve food. And then if I did go home and shame eat, like go and eat in my room and make sure I had a stash of something in there and I'd overeat to the point of like I'd be in pain, then I would go and work it off. So that, well, you ate this, this, and this, right? Chocolate chips, whatever. So now you have to go and train for 2 hours to burn all of that off because you're not worthy and you shouldn't have eaten that. And I would shame. So you can kind of put a picture here together, right? So I'm using exercise and food to shame myself. My constant self-talk is that you're not worthy, you're not good enough, you can't do anything, you don't deserve love, all of these things, right? Which then kept putting me in situations where I was in a box and I'd be controlled and I never really saw a way out. And of all the places to go, I joined the Defence Force, which is also another box, right? I mean, look, we're all in boxes everywhere in society, so it's fine, but it's like I chose to put myself in another box because also structure, all of that feels safe, right? So if you're in a box and you've got, everything you need to keep yourself living, then technically you're winning at life, right? Is that not how this works? So that was a really big thing for a really long time, that I just kept living the same stories. I kept living that I wasn't good enough. I kept living that. And it kind of got to a point where I got myself into being a physical training instructor in the army. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is the dream job that I wanted since I joined. And so that was about 7.5 years in. And I'd done some incredible things before this, by the way, too. Like been deployed, been overseas, like so many incredible things. But I didn't see any of them, right? And I didn't even see becoming a physical training instructor as a big deal. And because it's kind of not portrayed like that in the military. Like everyone's you just do what you do, right? It's not really a big deal to do anything. Unless, of course, you are of the highest caliber of the Defence Force. And so it was just really interesting because I'd put myself in this box. I was still trying to be a perfect human. I didn't ever feel worthy, didn't ever feel like safe or secure in my own body because of the sexual trauma that I'd had to work through. And I remember actually I had this amazing psychologist as I was sort of first coming into my physical training stuff, and I had to confront a lot of fears, right? I had to confront the fact that I had so many people I was taking in a session. And I remember the first session, actually, quick side note, first session I took, I walked looking at the ground. I was more scared of them than they were of me. And I remember somebody impersonated me, because we do that sort of thing, where they get to impersonate you. Like, it's kind of fun. Except it's not. It's you. And I was mortified, yet so grateful for this girl who impersonated me looking at the ground, right? Because do you know what? I never looked at the fucking ground again. I made sure I looked every recruit in the eye, like eye to eye, like crazy after that. So I'm super grateful she did that whole, although it was very, 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 at the time, I would say I was not in a place where that was very nice to receive. However, to this day, I'm super, super grateful, because she taught me that sometimes you need a mirror of somebody showing you what you're actually like for you to change your habits, right? Sometimes you need a really big wake up call. And that was like in your face wake up call. Turned to my peers and they were like, you do that. And it was a real confirmation of the fact that we don't always realize what we're doing until somebody else shows us. And I feel like it was a real divine guided moment where I got to choose who I wanted to be. And there's been so many of these moments in my life. However, that was a real, real big one. And it was really good to have feedback, even though sometimes we always don't like feedback as well. And I loved taking lessons. And I got this psych while I was back to the original story. I had this beautiful psych when I was there, and she was helping with my trauma. And I love her. And if this is too much for people, please move through this next minute, 30 seconds. If you do have sexual trauma, this comment could be triggering to you. It's not for me. I actually really needed it at the time, but I had moved through a lot at this point. So please maybe skip a minute or so into it. So this lady, she was awesome. She's an older lady. She's Asian. She's just like a really cool boss woman. And she said to me, because my story of the rape was that I smiled at him because that's what happened. And then he just thought that meant yes, that we're on, right? So then she said to me, she goes, so if you walk down the street and you smile at people and they smile back at you, everyone's just going to be fucking on the street. I was like, no. And she was like, get rid of that story. Because that story in my head was stopping me from smiling at people while I was walking down the street. I was holding a belief that if I smiled at people, something bad would happen, i.e., I'd get raped. Not a thing. But this is what happens with the mind, right? We start to create stories, we create scenarios, we create worlds, like literally our own world, right? In our brain that we live out every day. And our brain is trying to find ways to confirm that story. So if anything had happened, it would confirm my story, because that's what the brain wants to do. It wants to reconfirm, and it's so in your subconscious mind, which is actually crazy, but really good when you become conscious of it and somebody pulls you up and is like, this is delusional, please stop. And that was another really big turning point for me, because I started to be like, oh, how interesting. I wonder what else I'm living out. And I then started to study psychology and sociology. I thought, oh, I'm going to go to uni. I'm going to study. It's going to be amazing, right? This is totally my calling. And I started doing uni with full-time work. And because I was watching people around me do it, and they were killing it, right? They were doing so well. I had a really good friend and she was fucking crushing it. I'm like, I can do that. I can do that. And I failed. I started passing at the start for a couple of subjects and I was like, yeah, I'm doing well. But jumping between psychology essays and sociology essays, anyone who knows what that is like, that was horrendous. Like a topic each. Oh my gosh. And I started failing. And to the point where I kept trying and I kept failing and I kept paying for these courses. that I continually failed. And then it got to the point where the uni was like, honey, you're done. Like, we are done with this. You are no longer allowed to be on this course. I was devastated. I was like, holy crap. I can't even fit in this box to get the degree to do the thing, because I idolized this amazing professional who I had just worked with through trauma work, at her ability to understand me, her ability, our connection, her ability to help me go through my trauma and allow me to actually face it and come through the other side. Like, it was a very transformational experience with her. And we really got on, and she was a really beautiful, supportive woman. And I was like, damn it, this sucks. What am I going to do next? So kind of got to the point where I was hitting my 10 years, right, in army. And I was like, I'd planned to be out by then. In my brain, I had planned to discharge by my 10 years, take my long service leave, get out, all the things. I had done nothing apart from try to study, no other thing to try and work out how to get out. So I hit my 10 years and I had like a crisis. You could probably say like a midlife crisis at my 10-year point. And I was like, what am I going to do? I just don't even know. So I started throwing myself, and I pulled some of my friends along. Bless you, you'll be listening now. I'm like, and they probably didn't love it. But I was like, I'm going to try a breathwork thing. And so I pulled one of my friends, and I didn't even realize that it was actually also an inner child thing. And she was like, looked at me and she's like, thanks so much. I was like, sorry. So we went to this thing and we tried that out. And then I tried all these other things. I just kept trying stuff. And all of a sudden, I went to a tarot card reader and I was like, I am wanting to do all these things. Please give me a reading. And after she did my reading, she was like, I think we could do some energy work. And I was like, fuck yeah, like I'll try anything. So we're getting in and we're doing energy work, and it was amazing. I felt amazing. And then I was like, and she's like, what do you want to call in? And I was like, I want a coaching course. After I got over the fact, let's just go back a little bit. After I got over the fact that life coaching, because when I saw it, I was like, no, I want to be a psychologist and I want to fit in the box and I want to be in the, you know what I mean? Like, I want to be a professional. After I let go of that and was like, okay, I'm not becoming a psych, I'm not becoming a sociologist. I get to choose what I want to do. And I kind of looked at life coaching, like I said, and at first I was like, nope, I'm not doing that. And then I was like, okay, it actually looks pretty cool. Like, I've now gone into energy healing, which I'd never done before. I'm going to open up my eyes and I'm going to do it. So I said, I want a coach and I want a coaching qualification so I can do this. What do you think popped up on my Instagram the next day? Talk about alignment. Did an energy healing. Literally the next day, my coach and my coaching certification popped up. I jumped straight in. Didn't even think twice. I was like, don't need to look at their stuff. Don't really care. I'm just going to try something. A short course with this coach to see if she's who I want to coach with. And then the certification, I was like, I'm diving all in. It was in America. I was doing it online. I was still working full time. And I was like, I'm going to make it work. I don't care if the calls are till 2 a.m. in the morning. Yes, some of them were to 2 a.m. in the morning. But I had not realized when I signed up how much I had signed up for. However, I just moved back I'd moved to Sydney. I was in Sydney for a year with an incredible man who was my mentor. So he was the man that I worked with, and that was really cool because he let me like try things, as in we still were at work and did all the things, and then I'd talk to him about trying things, and he was so open. And so it was really nice to have someone at work who was super supportive and super open to just like whatever was going on. So then I moved postings in Sydney still, but just moved out west. And I had this incredible boss who you wouldn't believe, but of course he had gotten out of defense, had his own business with his wife, and then got back in. And of course, when I said to him, I'm starting my own business, I'm doing this, I'm doing that, he was like, let me know how I can support you. And this is a really big deal in Army because not everyone is as accepting and supportive. And I had found a boss who was super supportive. I'd found a coach, a business coach I could work with, and I found a certification course. And I had an incredible woman that I worked with who's super supportive, and I still work with her now. Shout out to Maddie. And I still work with my boss. Shout out to Dave. So I had the perfect group of people around me to support me. I still do. And I'm still in army and I'm growing this business. I am head in, bum up, like just working it out, like making the calls, doing the things, like training, just wanting to be the most incredible coach I could be, right? Meeting incredible humans. I'm doing amazing things. I'm trying Reiki healing I'd never heard of. I'm trying like EFT. I'm learning about all these things. Oh, pardon me. I'm learning about all these things, and it just like was amazing. It was totally the world that I was meant to be in. I met some incredible people, and I just like, it was only 2 Aussies on the course, right? And I met this incredible girl, shout out to Taylor, and we got to meet in person, and I have incredible friends in America who I cannot wait to meet in person someday. But this was just such an aligned course. I fully committed. I went all in, and my business just started shooting. Like I didn't even really know where it was going or what it was going to be. And so I just kind of let it go, and I just kind of started working on clients and doing, you know, free things for Reiki and trying things at my home. And then everything just was amazing because I had so much support. I'm not going to lie, that first year of business, I definitely probably told my coach I was going to quit minimum 4 times. There probably was more times than that, but it was hard. I didn't realize being an entrepreneur was a really big, lonely journey. And I'm not going to lie to you, I am grateful that I set myself up for success to have support from the beginning, because doing it alone, I could not even imagine. Like I had 2 communities to support me, a coach, a one-on-one coach, like just mind blowing. The things I learned as well, like from marketing and sales, and you know, there's like so many pieces to it. There's your offer, there's putting out like what systems do you use, like how do you, just so many things, right? Contracts, all of this. So grateful that I was held and supported during that time. And all I knew was that I wanted to help women. And I'd known this for a long time, because throughout my journey, and especially when I first became a physical training instructor, I got to help women and eventually men too, which was really lovely, in a pre-recruit program where we helped them get to the fitness level to join the military, to come into the army. And I loved it. I frothed every minute of it, right? Like every time I got to do something a little bit different, be outside the box, try new things like primal movement, and like we do a meditation, and we do like just beautiful sessions, because they did 4 hours of PT a day. It was really intense. And so we had to work out how to balance, you know, not having injuries and working hard enough to be able to get to their goals and achieve what they had to get to. And some of them had never done fitness before in their life. So it was a real balance of the psychosocial, of the physical, emotional, you know, all of those things. And it was really beautiful to have an impact where I got to allow them to show emotion when they needed to, release whatever was going on, talk about things, and see how their bodies can grow and improve, and teach them life skills. I think that was the most beautiful thing to see, that one of the courses, they went home for Christmas for 7 weeks, and for them to come back and still pass their fitness test showed me that when they were away, I said, you just need to keep moving. And so that's a life skill, to be able to give people the skills and tools to be able to keep moving, keep their fitness up, allow them to progress when it's time, and show them how like eating affects things, and your mental health is a big thing. And being able to integrate all of that into a program where I got to have such a profound impact on a beautiful groups, I should say, it was a couple of women and men, was a really amazing thing for them to come into the military. And I'm so grateful for that experience, because that was all part of leading me to becoming this coach, right? And being able to help men and women. I have done sessions with men. I mainly do them with women, but eventually, who knows, this could grow into a much bigger thing and I could support men as well. But this was really beautiful because I got to see it in real time. Like 7 weeks of progress, I got to be with them, support them, love them. It was a lot of energy for me, and I had to learn how to also manage that energy, manage the different instructors coming in, allow myself to also give it over to other instructors so I didn't hold on to it. Because, you know, sometimes we like to hold on to our baby and not let it go and let it flourish with other people taking over the reins. So that was a really big thing. So I learned a lot of really big lessons there. And I also learned how to become the instructor that I wanted to be. So how I could go from hectic, like, to 1,000 really quickly, because I definitely could do that, and have a straight face and look real mean, and be soft. So this was like the start, and I didn't even really realize this, but this was the start of my feminine and my masculine playing together. So I got to experiment with how that could work in the military, in a world where, you know, we're always taught to be super stoic and also just not really have feelings and emotions. You can have them, just don't portray them at work. And so this was a starting point where I got to be all of me, and I got to show all parts of me, which was really, really beautiful. And I got to ebb and flow and play with that with groups of people. And obviously that's a really big thing to hold because there's such a big dynamic and they're going through so much on this 7-week journey that they've signed up for. So that was a really beautiful synergy of how it all sort of started. And I sort of realized that it was time to try and do it myself. So then coming into leaving there, moving to Sydney, allowing myself to experiment and play and be open to new things is what brought all of this about. And why I'm so big on fitness is because in that program and in everything that I see is that our body, right, holds, and if you've read the book, I'm pretty sure it's Holds a Score, or anyway, someone could correct me, but our body is holding like that trauma, right? So what I learned was through my psych stuff was that, one, my mindset was my unconscious was bringing the world in around me. So my internal was reflected in my external. Two, the trauma that was held in my body needed to be released. And I got to continually allow through emotional release, through, you know, learning how to let my anger out, learning how to, like, first, once you let your anger out, then you start crying. It's just the way the emotions go on if you've ever done timeline therapy. And so that's the beauty of it. I started to release it all out of my body, anything that was being held and stored. And then I also then got to do energy work so I could understand and feel how my chakras were and what was being held in each part and how I could release that and how I could allow myself to tap into them and be with my body and spirit and with intuition that I'd had but I'd not listened to before because I wasn't connected to my body and I wasn't connected to allowing myself to open up my mind's eye to receive the messages that the universe was sending me. So although we still are guided, and clearly I was guided along this path to grow in this way, I get to be more in alignment and not use energy like I was so much out of alignment moving forward. And that's what I learned. I got to learn how to release and to be with and to allow instead of pushing and grinding and pushing and grinding. And this has also been a really big test in my business, right? Because I've burnt out through many different mediums. I've burnt out through fitness. I've burnt out through my mental health. I've burnt out through my business. Like when I first started and I wanted to go and do all the things, right? Because that was old programming of like always be in your masculine, always be doing the things, which is great. But there's like a point where obviously you can get to burnout, you can get injured. I was injuring my back every year. This is the first year I haven't injured my back. And I wasn't listening to my body and honoring what it needed, right? And I wasn't listening and understanding what I was receiving from the universe of guidance to keep moving forward when it comes to my business. So, gosh, the journey of my business is amazing. 2 years going into my third has been an absolute wild ride. so many pieces and meeting so many different people. And one of my favorite moments, well, there's so many of them, but I'm going to pick one that was super aligned is I was sitting at Tony Robbins, which was absolutely a vibe. If you have not seen Tony Robbins live, he's an absolute amazing man. And his ability to do mindset work, this is where with NLP that I had learned from my training, my American training, which was amazing, I actually got to watch him utilize it and use it and realize how I could use it in big rooms, on myself, all these things, right? All tools that I take forward and I get to use to my clients, which is amazing. And so it was really cool to see how the accreditation I learned, how he uses it and be around and have the huge transformations that being in that room had for 5 days. It was incredible, right? Walking on fire, all these things, like such big experiences. And I actually met this incredible woman while I was there, just sitting in, because I decided to buy the VIP version. I don't know if it's VIP or anyway, one of the bigger. So you were down the front and you had lunch provided for you every day and snacks and tea and coffee for free. And because it was a really big commitment and I was like, I'm going all in. I'm not playing small here. I'm going all in. So I decided to jump in and I met this incredible woman who some of you might know her, Natalie Patterson, and we were just talking at the dinner table for ages, right? And so it was actually insane because she's a millionaire, right? And she was just talking to me like it was normal and that I could do that. And I had never expanded my thought process to think that I could grow in such a big way. And I love that she opened me up to it and I ended up joining a container and I've grown so much since and had some really good sales months and all the things. And I also met another two women who were the beautiful soul sisters who I ended up going on their podcast and all of the beautiful things. But going back to Nat, it was really interesting because before I met her, just before, I was sitting looking up at stage. I was watching this lady talk on stage. She was amazing. And I was like, I'm meant to be up there. I'm meant to be on stage. I don't know why. I had a vision of myself standing up on stage. And then I met her. And Natalie then was like, well, you can introduce me in Sydney for her event. I got to stand up and introduce her twice. So it was amazing how the universe was like, yep, you're meant to be up on stage. You're going to meet this person. And then all of a sudden, I was literally on stage, not that much, a few weeks later. And so when you're in alignment, you get to meet these people, right? And I got to meet these other two women where I went on their podcast. So I got to get myself out there, which also then allows me to, and I still talk to all of these women today, which is so amazing. And it just shows you that what's meant for you won't pass you by. And also what's meant for you when you're in alignment comes to you and you don't have to do anything. It's actually amazing. So like I said, I had a coach come to me, a certification come to me, a lady come to me so I could speak on her stages. And I got to put myself out there, meet other women that I also really aligned with, that I could get in their podcast and do all these beautiful things, right? All from committing to being I'm going all in on myself. And this is a really big mantra for me as I've been moving forward, is I get to choose what I go all in on and what feels right for me. And for me, in my human design, my gut is my tell of what feels right. And if I'm frustrated, I'm out of alignment. And if I'm feeling in joy and love and all the beautiful things, I'm in alignment. So there's different tools that you can use. And I love utilizing because we get to know what we're like, right? What our body is telling us, what's right for us, what's not right for us. And trust me, even if something isn't right for you, you will know by the universe. I'll give you a little story on that. So I was like, oh, I really want to talk to this guy, right? Messaged him, all the things, wanted to catch up, do a thing. He was like, nah, I'm good. And all of a sudden, out of nowhere, another guy comes in and I was like, oh, perfect. Way more in alignment and exactly what I wanted. And I was like, this gets to be how this works, right? We get to put out to the universe if we want something, and trust me, if it's not right for you, it will not land, and what is right for you will come into you. So it's really important with intentions and allowing ourselves to set intentions of what we want, and also allowing ourselves to receive. And this is a really big thing when it comes to the masculine and the femme, which has been a bit of a journey for me, because coming back into my sensuality, releasing my sexual trauma, and allowing myself to really be in my body again and feel how extravagant and extraordinary my body is, and also allow myself to receive and not have to push and push and push and push and push, right, to get what I want in this life. Allow myself to be magnetic. And the third point to this, as in once I allowed myself to start changing my mindset, and I came into my body and released my trauma and allowed myself to release what was no longer serving me and tap into my body's wisdom, because our body always knows and it'll tell us all the time whether we listen to it or not. Then I actually decided to go and learn about spirituality, which was also to do with Natalie, who I was talking to you about before. And I started learning light codes. Now, I was already doing Reiki energy healing. However, when it came to light codes energy healing, it was next level. Like, I just came off a 5-day training with her from level 2, which is absolutely crazy. And to be able to, one, think about how energetics is such a big thing for all of us. Like, literally we need energy to do anything. So it's like, how do we allow ourselves to utilize our energies in really good ways? How do we protect our energy? How do we allow ourselves to take any cords, like anything that we've been brought from another life, like, and from our ancestors and all these things. Anyway, how do we cut the cords? How do we cut the threads? How do we allow ourselves no longer to have hooks in us from different people? And like, there's so many aspects to this. And then have a clear energetic body so we can be more magnetizing and put ourselves up into the 5th dimension and the 7th dimension, which is what I got training on the other day, which is actually crazy. And not just in the 3D, because obviously we live life in the 3D and that's really cool. However, we can also elevate our vibration, and that can bring in so much more magic for us, so that we can, instead of going out and doing, we actually receive more by putting ourselves in that high vibration and setting an intention to allow things to come to us. And so this is a beautiful softening into the feminine, right? Instead of like pushing the body all the time with fitness, sometimes I allow myself to get in the body and be sensual and move in a really beautiful way, or touch my arm, or allow, like that sensuality of touch, or have more self-care rituals that allow me to get into my body out of my brain. So the brain is no longer keep telling the same story, because our brain and body are really connected. And obviously then we go up to spirit. But it's like, if our brain has an unconscious thought, it's actually programmed our body to also believe it and to act a certain way. So we kind of go in this real circle. So once we change a subconscious thought, we also then need to allow our body to feel into it and what we want to feel instead, so that we can really solidify and make a different choice. And so there's so many things when it comes to habits, beliefs, body wisdom, all of this stuff. And then we get to do that through our physical body first, through health, through nourishment, through all of that. And then we get to reprogram the mind and connect in with spirit and our higher selves to move forward in this life. So there's so much juice, and I absolutely love helping women in all of this, because to me, health is holistic. Through my journey, health has been so many different facets, right? And for me, like, biggest struggles with mental health were, depression, and going through a time where I didn't think I could become a physical training instructor, and I would talk myself out of it, and all the mental battles that I was telling you about. And then my body of breaking down because I kept pushing and pushing and pushing it, and I didn't actually allow myself to listen to it. And then not spiritually being guided and listening to my intuition with my soul, and being with my soul and allowing it to know its purpose and move forward with what's meant to be in alignment, right? So many facets that it wasn't until I actually brought them all together that I actually realized how incredible and magical this life could be. And them on their own don't do their own thing. Like, you can great. You can honestly work on all of them separately and you will shift. But if you want a transformational shift, and that's what's transformed my life, right? The way I see my life, how grateful I am for all of the incredible things that have come into my life. I honestly don't think I could actually do it justice. Like the house that magically turned up, which was so much more expensive than the house I had before. And once I released the block of not living out west, like just so many things that appeared, the people that appeared in my life to allow me to keep progressing forward. The magic of money that falls, from the sky almost, and the clients that come out of nowhere that I've never met and they listen to one thing or they've never seen me and they just add me on Instagram and all of a sudden they're in, like, none of this can be explained in the 3D. It's all quantum. And it means that we get to quantum shift. And I love the fact that I did quantum coaching and when I first started, and I have quantum leaped. And I have not only in mindset, not only in my physical body, but also in how I show up spiritually and talk to my guides and all these beautiful things. And when it all comes together, that is the magic of it. So all of it separately doesn't really work. But when it all comes together, it is such an absolute gift. And it almost just does it. Like you sit here with your day and you're like, of course that happened, right? Of course. But my brain is stunned. Like things don't make sense. Everything in your brain is like, actually, I can't make this out, like work this out. But you're like, of course the things that I said as an intention dropped in. Of course the right people come in. Of course I have these beautiful soulmate clients. Of course I have money flowing to me easily and effortlessly. Of course I got this house. Of course we're living a life where I get to go and have a run with my dog this morning, and I have this beautiful angel of a dog, Piper. I haven't really spoken about her, but those of you who know her, she's literally an angel sent down from Earth. From Earth. Oh my gosh. Sent to Earth from the sky. Universe, spirit. Anyway, she was sent down here to guide me to learn how to love more. And this is the best because it means I get to open my heart to how grateful I am for her. She helps me be playful every day and be present and honor the fact that I need to get outside, even when sometimes I'm a hermit. And these things were given to me as a gift. The reason I'm here right now is due to following my intuition, due to following my guides when they talk to me and they show me things that I need to move forward in, even like listening to certain songs that give me messages and all these things, right? Because messages come in so many different ways. My psychic abilities, my ability to tap into my body and how I've trained my body and I get to keep developing and moving through that and honoring what it actually needs. And then changing my mindset, knowing that all of this is possible and showing myself that it is possible, right? Changing habits, changing beliefs, coming into allowing myself to really honor me, all of me, unapologetically me. And so this is why this podcast is here, and why I wanted to create it, was because I want you to have a permission piece to be unapologetically wild, right? Because this next year, the year of the snake, is such a big, beautiful, there'll be depths, there will be highs, there'll be lows, there'll be everything, right? We all get to experience life because that's the best part. But it's always showing us the way. It's always teaching us new things. It's always allowing us to grow and expand and transform into the person that we're next going to be, whilst also loving and honoring and having compassion for the person that we've been, right? The versions of us that we've been. And that's so beautiful because we get to have it all and we get to be all of the things. And when we honor all parts of us and have compassion and love for all parts of us, we get to honor and love everyone else. And I am so grateful, so grateful for everything, for you listening to me today, for you being a part of this wild community. So who knows? Like I said, there's going to be weird things we're going to be talking about. Probably taboo. And to be unapologetic. Just be you. If all you get from this podcast is to go out and say the thing you want to say, you go from being a mouse to a lion, which was my experience, right? I was an itty bitty mouse, didn't speak, just squeaked, and then I became a fucking lion because I am a lioness. Lioness. Big mane though. What a mane. Yeah, I can make my own. And just saying the thing. Say what you want to say. Allow yourself to come into shifting your mindset. Allow yourself to come into your body and just be completely you. Wear the thing you want to wear. Say the thing you want to say. Walk and go to the place you want to go to, whether it's by yourself, with friends, whatever you want to do. This is your permission piece to be unapologetically you and unapologetically wild. We get to be wild feminine beings. And this is the next part of this journey, is like, how do we allow ourselves to be wild, be free in a place where we've been in a box, right? And so we get to honor that though. You don't have to stay in a box, but you also get to choose what you want. So I'm still in the military and I get to have this incredible life, incredible business, and I'm supported by the people and my job at this point. When that doesn't become in alignment, that's when I get to choose to leave that. But you get to choose unapologetically what you want. This is your life and you get to live it. No one else can tell you how. So I want you to understand and to be with your unapologetic self, even if that's discovering who she is, because we're all going to be different. We're all going to have different life paths and we're all going to have different ways of doing that. So be unapologetically you. Be unapologetic, be wild, be you. And I hope you've loved this podcast. And I've loved being here with you. Thank you for being here.